Hey, it's Kyle here, and today I'll be reviewing The Accidental President, Harry S. Truman and the 4 Months That Changed the World by A.J. I can't pronounce your last name, sorry, B-A-I-M-E. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be, but I didn't want to butcher it, so I figured I should spell it out. So anybody that's a viewer of this channel knows that I am very much a lover of history. Love reading nonfiction history books. And one of my favorite genres in nonfiction history to read is books about American political history. My degree in college is political science, and I've always enjoyed reading books about American political history, specifically biographies on important political leaders throughout America's history. And I've read a decent amount about Harry Truman, mainly through a lot of books I've read about FDR, World War II, kind of the early Cold War period, but I've actually never read a book just about Harry Truman. I know a good amount about him from just being a political science major and having to study him through classes and stuff, because he's actually one of the more influential presidents in American history. But again, I've never read a biography about him, so I was very excited to read this book. And this one kind of has an interesting concept. It's kind of a book kind of focuses on two elements. One, there is kind of a biography on Harry Truman's life leading up to becoming president, how he got there, for everything from his childhood, growing up as a poor farming family, to how he began his rise in politics, all the controversy that was involved in that, and how he got to be selected as FDR's VP, all that type of stuff. That part of the book is very fascinating. I knew some elements of it, especially some of his political career stuff, but I didn't really know a whole lot about his background as a kid and stuff, and I did find that very interesting, to how somebody that was became the most powerful man in the free world came from such humble origins. This was very fascinating, seeing from the vast majority of your life, his life I should say, no one in his life, including like Harry Truman, would ever predicted he would have got anywhere near the White House, not only being president. Being a VP was a big enough shock, but the fact he became president was almost seen as impossible. So that part of this, his story of his life is really fascinating and in many ways inspiring. But the other element of the book that I found very interesting, a lot of times when obviously you have books about presidents, you'll focus on their entire term or their entire life. This book specifically focuses on the first 4 months of Harry Truman becoming president, which, as this book says on the cover, really are 4 months that changed the history of the world. If you're not too familiar with that period of U.S. history, World War II is starting to come to an end. It's clear that the Allies are going to win, but there's still a lot of big decisions to be made that really will impact how the world is governed post-World War II. Obviously, on the Allied side, the entire war, 3 figures dominated it: FDR, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin. And then suddenly, as the war's winding down, FDR is such a, the driving force behind, in many ways, behind the strategy of the war, dies. Now, it wasn't a shock. He was in really, really bad health. But again, he'd been president for so long, there was almost this thought like, well, he can't die as he'll figure out a way to will himself to live the rest of his term, and then he'll pass away when he leaves office. So I think no one was more shocked than Harry Truman that suddenly he's kind of unknown, who has just started his first term as VP. He hasn't been VP that long. He still doesn't really know a lot of the secrets behind the war. He hasn't really been read in. He's been kind of cut out of the political decision-making process. It's suddenly now the leader of the United States, right when the war is ending and all these important decisions are being made. And to kind of sum it up, I'm going to read off the back cover here, because this back cover does a real good summary of all the big events that took place in these 4 months that Harry Truman was involved with and had to make decisions in regard to. So let me pull this up. Saw the founding of the United Nations, the fall of Berlin, victory at Okinawa, fire bombings in Tokyo, the first atomic explosion, the Nazi surrender, the liberation of concentration camps, mass starvation in Europe, the Potsdam Conference, the controversial decision to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the surrender of Imperial Japan, and finally the end of World War II and the rise of the Cold War. Each of those events involved several key decisions which Harry Truman was heavily involved in. And the fact, is basically starting right off, all right, sorry sir, you're going to have to make decisions that are going to shape the fate of humanity not just now. You're not making decisions impacting them now or just for a year or for the rest of your term. These are decisions that impacted how humanity operated for the rest of the 20th century and is still impacting the world today. And this book really does an amazing job at kind of exploring Truman's mindsets during these important decisions, what he was thinking, what options he was considering, who his advisors were, what they were thinking of, what other world leaders were thinking of what Truman was doing, what the public in America was thinking of what Truman was doing, how the perception of Truman was when he was making these decisions versus what they are now. It is a very fascinating book. I highly recommend this book if you're interested in history, political history, World War II history. If you're just kind of curious why the world is like it is today in regard to like international politics, a lot of the stuff that Harry Truman made decisions on in these 4 months still impacts how international politics works to this day, for the good and for the bad. So I definitely recommending reading this book, The Accidental President. Excellent book about Harry Truman. I loved it. Highly recommend it. Hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, hit that like button. If you have yet, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate the support. In the comment section below, let me know what is your favorite biography about an American president. I'm very curious to see what everybody's favorites are. Again, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time, and happy reading.